Good morning, campers.
Good morning.
I call my presentation Mama Bear. And I call it Mama Bear because I am so mad. I am angry with what's happening to our country. And I don't have children, but let me tell you, I know instinctually, my Mama Bear instincts are out. You are messing with our cubs. Now, I'm from the state of California, and I know a lot of people out there as I travel the United States, speaking at different events and also attending different conferences because I really want to be educated on the truth and what's happening out there. When I say I'm from California, there are many people who say, oh, California should just drop off into the ocean. But look, if we're the United States of America, wouldn't we want to save California as well? Wouldn't we? Why would we want one of our cubs to just slide off and disappear? You wouldn't. And here's some remarkable things about California that I'm very proud of. Do you know that we are the breadbasket of the nation? We actually could, if government was unhinged, off our back, on our side. In fact, that was my campaign slogan. We need government on our side, not on our back. But I can tell you, as ranchers and farmers, the government continues, and environmental groups continue more and more this foot on our neck and telling us what we can and cannot do on our own land. But California is the breadbasket of the nation. It is not plush like it is here. By the way, as I'm driving around, how many are from Massachusetts, Maine? Let's see, New Hampshire, New York? Any other states around here? Connecticut. Any others? Michigan, Rhode Island. Okay, you guys live in a corner of the United States that's absolutely spectacular. It is beautiful. And as I'm driving around, I truly am like the bear that went over the mountain. I go where I can see. And my head, I'm surprised I don't have a broken neck today. Because as I'm driving around, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. People think California is beautiful, but you have a beautiful area as well. And as I've been traveling, I went from Boston to New Hampshire to Maine, and then came here, went to New York over the last, since I arrived. I've just been driving, because I'm like the bear who went over the mountain to see what she could see. And I want to go down these driveways because you guys love to mow your lawns. And in California, there are cities that want to ban mowing lawns. And even the junkiest places I've seen in your beautiful area are beautiful because the lawns are mowed. Oh my gosh, just that simple little detail, that simple little pleasure. You live in a place that's absolutely spectacular and it's worth fighting for. Do you agree?
Yes.
I mean, no kidding, worth fighting for. And we ranchers and we farmers feel the same way. And California, as the breadbasket of the nation, what makes us the breadbasket of the nation? Well, first of all, we are an arid state, meaning it's mostly dry. It's high desert in many places. We've got the ocean, we've got the mountains, we've got the hotter weather down in San Diego and on the Mexican border. And in the north where I'm from, just below the Oregon border, what we do is hay up there. We have cattle and hay, and when you work your way down the state, you have fruits, you have nuts, you have vegetables, nuts and fruits again. And we could feed the world if government was not on our back as they are. So what is the major issue in California besides the big fires, which is a government problem, because they will not let us timber our own land. So we are importing timber from Quebec. And if you drive around the north part of California, you're going to see forest upon forest that are on fire right now. Why? Because our forests are too dense, meaning too many trees. They're overpopulated. And let me tell you, deer do not want to eat pine needles. And the spotted owl you hear about, which is why we have a moratorium on our forest, because supposedly timbering, cutting down trees, which is a wise idea. It's like brushing your hair or brushing your teeth. We need to manage things right in order for them to survive, to sustain. And if we were able to properly manage our forest, thin them out, meaning cut the trees, those spotted owl could actually fly into the forest and get the rodents that they really want. And just recently, the California Department of Fish and Game, now called Fish and Wildlife, because it's not about game anymore, it's not about hunting, it's not about human beings getting their food and managing, stewarding the earth. Fish and Wildlife now has said it's okay to kill the barred owl because the barred owl is mating with the spotted owl, which is the true reason that the spotted owl's population is decreasing. But they've already told all the public that, it's the people who are cutting down trees, these old forests, these old, that are harming the spotted owl. That is not true. It's the barred owl. So we've got a lot of issues in California, and the biggest one is water. Right now in California is the largest dam destruction project in worldwide history. Have any of you heard of the Klamath River? So let me ask you, 4 or 5 people have heard of the Klamath River. If it's the largest dam destruction project in worldwide history, don't you think it should be making news?
Yes.
But if it is the world's largest dam destruction project in worldwide history, and it's full of lies, do you think it will make the news?
No.
Not in the 21st century news, but it should be in the news because it's wrought with fraud. Can you see my mama bear? Not everything in life comes for free. In fact, nothing comes for free. We are always piggybacking on something else. And then a lot of times, we mama bears will do anything for our cubs. And so many people here, presenters, I know feel the same way, and that's why we're all here. While the globalist agenda, called Agenda 21, needs the youth, needs you campers, to implement their agenda for the 21st century, the freedom and liberty movement needs you more. Do you agree with me? And that's why you guys are really unique. Do you know how many children, how many kids, how many campers are in a class like this right now? Can you imagine the opportunity that you have to take everything that you're learning here and move forward and move upward and share? What children are being taught all across the United States under this new education system called Common Core is that the kids know more than the parents. That you campers, although you know a lot, and I bet you there are a lot of things that you know more than I do, but that we should be listening to you. In fact, Al Gore was part of a book. You all know who Al Gore is? You all know who Al Gore is? Who doesn't know who Al Gore is? Al Gore, who I've confronted several times now. In fact, I made Fox News twice now because of my videos from my cell phones at Sundance Film Festival 2 years ago, and last year in Australia, I met Al Gore at an eco-science conference. Al Gore helped write this book. This book is called Rescue Mission Planet Earth, a children's edition of Agenda 21. Here's what he says. As chairman of the state subcommittee in the Senate, this was when he was a senator, I strongly urge the establishment of a mission to planet Earth, a worldwide monitoring system staffed by children designed to rescue the global environment. What's going on with the global environment that needs to be rescued? Campers?
Nothing.
So what is the myth, let's say, of what's going on? What's the fake news about, if you will, about what's going on, why the planet needs to be rescued? Yes, sir? Global warming. What kind of global warming? What kind?
Man-made.
Man-made. Thank you very much. You all just had breakfast, right? Where's your energy? All right, everybody stand up, please. Everybody stand up, please. Reach your hands to God. Look up. Breathe in. Stretch out. Arms down. Thank you. Much better, right? All right. Now, when it comes to presentations, I break all the rules.
Right.
I have less than 50 minutes now, so somebody's going to have to give me the hook. And I have 76 slides plus videos. So can I have your permission to zoom through some of these slides, and you'll keep up with me? Do I have your permission? Everybody raise their hands.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Guys, here's the bottom line. We're heading for a train wreck. Daniel Webster said, if all my possessions were taken from me, with one exception, I would choose to keep the power of communication, for by it I would soon regain all the rest.
Amen.
What is he saying here? We all have the power of communication. Not only is it protected in our First Amendment, but we have the ability through our mouth, our hands, our eyes, all sorts of ways to communicate with others, yes?
Yeah.
And my request of all of you is to be living, breathing, walking, talking billboards for the truth. Will you take that on? Will you take that on? You don't have to, but I'm asking you to take it on. Why? Let me give you an example. Last night as I was driving, I dropped Dr. Duke Pest off at the airport. And when I came back, Nurse Nancy told me about this thing called Tanglewood. And so when I was driving back and doing, the bear that went over the mountain to see what she could see, I passed Tanglewood and I see all these cars and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Oh, this is what Nurse Nancy was talking about. So I pull over, I pull into the parking lot and I buy a ticket because I love music. And there I am sitting in this concert and you all were here getting, that storm came through. It was happening at the concert too. And as I was sitting there, people would come up to me for whatever reason, or I'd talk to them, and they'd say, well, where are you from? I'd ask a question like, is there a plug? Because I'm not from here, and I need my smartphone to get to the final destination that I have to go to tonight, and because I'm not here, oh, where are you from? I'm from California. Oh, did you come here for this concert? No, I'm right down the road somewhere at this thing called Camp Constitution. Oh, what is Camp Constitution about? Oh, it's about teaching campers about what's going on in the world. Oh, like what? Well, for example, an opening, right? If I'm in a grocery store in California, we have to buy paper bags, recycled paper bags. Okay, so when I go into which is crazy to me because, well, this will hopefully explain why I think it's so crazy. And by the way, Boston you guys are about to implement this too. So when I go to a grocery store and I have all my plastic toothbrush and my plastic shampoo and my food that's covered in plastic, all these different things, right? Because of food and safety, we have to protect food and other products, and for theft and tampering and all these things, right? We are required to protect the things that we sell in mostly plastic. So when I go to purchase all my food or whatever I'm purchasing, I get asked in California, do you want to buy a bag or do you want a bag? Here's what I say. And it's different every time, but you'll get the idea. No, I do not want to buy a government bag. So you're asking me to buy a government bag and to buy my plastic toothbrush, my plastic, my toothpaste that comes in a plastic container, my shampoo that comes in my plastic container, my eggs that come in a Ziploc plastic container, because now you can buy eggs individually. And then you want me to slide my plastic credit card into the plastic credit card taking machine so that I could buy plastic for all my plastic to save planet Earth? And do you know how many times a conversation is started as a result of that? I am a walking, talking billboard for educating others. And that is the opportunity here. In every presentation, you know what? Last night when I was speaking to somebody from somebody from New York says, oh, where are you from? I'm from California. Oh, all the fires. And I say, yes. In fact, my birthplace, Redding, California, is the fire that you're hearing about. And somebody says, oh, it's such a shame. And I said, yep, I have a bad governor. And she says, oh, you mean, what about this administration? And I said, well, I'm not talking about this administration. I'm talking about my governor, Jerry Brown of California. Oh, yeah. And she says, she says, so what's going on? And there's a group of people around me. And she says, what's going on? And I said, well, our forests are being mismanaged. And she says, well, let's talk about the real issue. And I said, well, what's the real issue? I know where she's going. You all know where she's going?
Yeah.
Climate change. And you know what? If I could tap into Willie's, presentation, she goes on to say storms. Okay, storms are happening. I'm from here. I have not seen storms like this, but I've talked to other people who said, oh, this is normal. In fact, a couple years ago, there was such a flood that blah, 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 right? So, and if I had this tool, so we are being given tools to combat the lies that are out there. But if I had this tool, this is called an inconvenient deception, how Al Gore distorts climate science and energy policy by a friend of ours, Roy Spencer. If I had this book or had remembered the information, I could have gone back and said, hurricanes struck the Florida Panhandle much more frequently during the first millennium AD than the last 1,000 years. And brought up this book and said, how can you tell me there's climate change and there's more storms and there's more fears when history shows us differently? Am I making sense here? Can someone sum up really quickly what I'm asking? I'm going to call on somebody. Sir, right next to you in the glasses. Yes, you, sir. The fast runner.
Yeah, the fast runner. You know,
Stand up.
Stand up. It's you.
All right, I'll give you a break.
Okay.
But will you remain awake for me, please? Thank you. Someone else. How about you in the orange shirt?
Basically, I think what you're trying to say is there's so many people that are that can't see what is actually happening, and you're basically like on there. You're all fired up about that, and you want to help all of us learn about what's actually happening.
Thank you. Excellent. Now that video that I just handed, I'm sorry, what's your name? Camper, what's your name?
Benny?
Benny. The video that I just handed Benny is called Climate Hustle, and Lord Monckton is in this. If you want another really awesome tool to speak to your friends, your families, other campers out there about the truth and all the lies, not all the lies, but many of the lies that are being told, this is a fantastic documentary. It's normally $20. If you want it here, you can have it for $10 or however many camp dollars that ends up being. Okay, so Benny, I want to acknowledge you. You did not know this, but you just led us into my next slide. So Benny said something about helping people see what they can't see. In other words, life is in the details. Stop and smell the roses sort of thing. So let's just do a test. When you see the next slide as a group, let's read it together. Out loud, please. A bird in the bush. Wait a minute. How many said a bird in the bush? Be honest, I heard a lot of a bird in the bush. So let's take a look closer at what is there. What does it actually say? Someone read out what it, yes ma'am, in the blue shirt. Yep.
A bird in the bush.
You see that detail? You can never unsee it ever again. How about this one? FedEx. Does anybody see a FedEx? Something, a symbol, and actually this is quite interesting because in the symbol, in the FedEx, and remember, for some of you, you remember it used to be Federal Express. And Fred Smith, the CEO, said, you know what, too long, let's narrow it down. And by the way, let's put in something that represents what FedEx does in the world. What does FedEx do? Forwards things, delivers things, right? So what's in that FedEx? Yes, sir, right there in the gray shirt. Please stand. And what do you see, sir, proudly?
There's an arrow in between the E and the
Who sees the arrow?
Oh, you see it, right? You see it? It's always been there.
You see that arrow? Listen up. You can never, ever, ever unsee that detail. Ever. Because the next time you see a FedEx truck, you see it immediately. That goes for... That goes for all the details that we're being taught here at Camp Constitution. All the details that we have been given so far and will be continue to be given are tools for us to use every single day to help others, Benny, see what they cannot see. And once we give them the opportunity, just like I did last night, you know, as guilty as I felt at being at this great concert and you're all here in this storm, there was an opportunity for me to educate, not speak to the choir, right? Preach to the choir, bark up the, you know, whatever that saying is, barking up the wrong tree or whatever. I was barking up the right tree because those people need to be educated. They're not here. Their children aren't here. And it's unfortunate. Now here's a detail that to launch now into what is this presentation is called Agenda 21. Agenda 21, which we kind of got a little sneak peek in this book that Al Gore helped contribute to the world. Agenda 21 is simply, but not simply, the agenda for the 21st century. If we were in the 22nd century, it would be called Agenda 22. But here's another way that I look at it. Agenda 21, and just like Dr. Willie Soon had mentioned yesterday, I don't know if you caught this little detail that he mentioned, that there is a movement towards a world governance, a new kind of government system. One that if you were in John McManus's presentation was all about the United Nations. So here's how another way that I like to say Agenda 21. It's an agenda to one. An agenda to one world governance. And that's exactly what it is. And many people get told that they are conspiracy theorists, which under the National Defense Authorization Act, anybody talking about a conspiracy can now be put in a court, a military court in another country and tried. Because of under the NDAA, conspirators or people who speak against their government can now be tried. Extraordinary, isn't it? But it wasn't us who came up with this agenda, and it was a former, although I didn't run against Nancy Pelosi, I ran in a district just below her district in San Francisco. But this is 1992. It's October 2nd, a Friday night, Congress, Friday evening, 9:11 p.m. Interesting, isn't it? So what were your families probably doing at 9:11 p.m. on a Friday night? Do you think that they were paying attention to what Congress was doing? Not. But let's just hear what was going on this evening.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 353, concurrent resolution expressing the sense of the Congress that the United States should assume a strong leadership role in implementing the decisions made at the Earth Summit by developing a national strategy to implement Agenda 21 and other Earth Summit agreements through domestic policy and foreign policy.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from the other.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H-Con Res. 353, expressing the sense of the Congress that the United States should assume a strong leadership role in implementing the decisions made at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. I now yield to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Pelosi, the sponsor, to explain the resolution.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. In fact, it is a very simple resolution which the gentleman has just mostly explained. The Earth Summit Environmental Leadership Act, as this is known, presents us with an opportunity to follow up on the important work of the Earth Summit to develop its blueprint, Agenda 21, for global environmental action. HCON Res 353 outlines a comprehensive national strategy for sustainable development in accordance with the principles of Agenda 21. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution. We must make the promise of Rio a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman from the...
If you look online, you look up Agenda 21, you're going to see all over the place conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat. Is there anything conspiratorial about this? You mean Nancy Pelosi is conspiring against us, maybe? Is that why the head nodding? Because look, those aren't my words, they're hers. And as I go around the country speaking about United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, mostly you hear today, sustainability this, sustainability that, everywhere you go, do you not see or hear about sustainability? And I bet you for a lot of the adult campers here that when we look back, it wasn't all the time that we were talking about sustainability. In fact, that conversation has only come up in about the last 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, really. So, 1992, I haven't done Common Core yet, so help me figure out the math. That was how many years ago? 1992. Yes, sir? 26. Okay, so 26 years ago, but why is it that we're just now hearing about it in the last 5, 10 years? Isn't that interesting? But Congress has known about this, even though it did not pass. When you look locally, just like here, locally in the state of Massachusetts, you are seeing Agenda 21 sustainability plans being implemented in your city councils, in your board of supervisors, whatever meetings that you have that for planning for the future of your state, whatever state, New Hampshire, Maine, wherever, Connecticut, wherever you're from. And I invite you people, you campers, to start attending your meetings in your local area, because the future depends on you. You are our future leaders. And I can tell you, if this plan is fully implemented, we will become modern day slaves. Slaves to a system. Slaves to a new kind of government that does not include private property, and we'll get into that just a second. The future of energy depends on this. What kind of energy? Energy that they say, who? The United Nations, the globalists, Al Gore, Mitt Romney, for example. It's not a left-right. Chris Ann said yesterday, this is not a left-right issue. This is not a right versus a Republican versus Democrat, because at the top, they're all involved in this. They've known about this. Ted Cruz knows about this. Why aren't they speaking about this? When it controls every aspect of our lives. How do you say so, Miss Debbie? This document, Agenda 21, the Earth Summit Strategy to Save Our Planet, edited by a guy named Daniel C. Tars. Introduction by U.S. Senator Paul Simon. Says this about Agenda 21. Effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of all human society, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. A major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial services. This is the sentence that gets me every single time. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level. Let's look at that again. This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action. What's a human action? That is a human action. Give me another human action. Or clapping. How about breathing? How about living? This shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action be integrated into individual and collective decision-making. Okay, so collective decision-making. Let's get an example here. Healthcare, Obamacare. What's interesting about Obamacare, it's all about the collective, right? No one pays, or it's single payer, government pays, and we all get health care. But we're paying into it, right? We're paying into it as individuals, but it's collective. So if we're paying, so if I'm paying in and I'm paying for you, is it now my business that you smoke? If I'm paying, is it now my business that you don't exercise? Is it my business now that you live in rural America, and to get from rural America to a hospital and an urban center takes 45 miles to get there? Is it my business that you are using resources that could be used somewhere else to get yourself from your ranch to the hospital? Is it my business that you don't live closer to the hospital and you can walk to the hospital? It's now my business. That is collectivism. That is Obamacare. That is what Agenda 21 is all about. And what do you see as a camper, as the threat to you as a person? Anybody want to say? What does it do? Yes, sir.
They're trying to take your liberties away.
And your individualism away. If government can give you your rights, government can do what? Said another way, if man can give you your rights, man can do what? And what happens to your individualism as a result? Are you an individual anymore? Or are you just part of the collected good? And I know under what our founding fathers created here on planet Earth was they believed in individualism. They believed in your natural rights, your God-given rights, that man cannot give away. Amen? Amen. This is the future of the energy that they want, but let me tell you, as they tell you about this new sort of energy that's supposed to save planet Earth, do they tell you about the splicing and dicing of the birds that happen? You don't see that, now do you? But as Nancy Pelosi said, that our future is about sustainable development. In fact, when Lord Monckton and I were at the 2012 Rio Earth Summit in Brazil, it was called Rio Plus 20. At that time, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was there. And what was Hillary Clinton talking about? She said that the only future is sustainable development. Well, what is sustainable development? Sustainable development, which is Agenda 21, is where it happens right in the middle here. Social equity, social justice, economic justice, environmental justice. The economic, social, and environmental aspects of any action are interconnected. So, to break that down, social equity. How often do we hear about social equity or social justice? All the time, right? So what is that? What is social justice? Anybody want to yell it out? Yes, sir.
It's political correctness.
Political correctness, evening the playing field. But you men out there, you men campers out there, many of you are stronger than I am, right? So can you possibly, when it comes to strength, do more things than I can? So let me ask you, how are we going to even the playing field on that one? Economic justice. This is simply wealth redistribution. And in order for Agenda 21 to be fully funded, United Nations needs American dollars. In fact, most of our dollars, meaning most of our country would be paying for it. You, us. Environmental justice, simply put, rocks have rights. And as I believe Chris Ann talked about yesterday, that rivers are now given rights. New Zealand has just recently given a river a human right. Is that crazy or what? I'd like to know what the river thinks about that. The future of Agenda 21 looks like this. We all live in stack and pack housing. High density living situation where we walk, we bike, and we take public transportation everywhere we go. This is America2050.org. In other words, it's called regionalism, and it's being taught in colleges right now. So the regions will exist of Northern California, that is a region. Southern California, there's I think 13. Cascadia up here, and where you guys, you're the northeast region up here. So you will be pushed eventually by the year 2050 is their goal. You can look this up at America2050.org, and you could see that what they're doing is where they're putting the emphasis are on these regions. The Bay Area, the one Bay Area, got regionalized in 2013, and I went to many of the meetings to fight against this plan, this $300 billion plan. So said another way, under regions, city, county borders start to disappear. So in the power of voting, and you are now erasing the lines. Where else are we hearing erasing of lines of borders? Illegal immigration? Sanctuary cities? Is it starting to make sense? So if you're going to move us all into one world governance, what do you have to do? You have to create one. Exactly. And everywhere you go now, you will see, here's another sign of how Agenda 21 is being implemented. You look at malls. I just went to Albany yesterday, and your malls in Albany look exactly like my malls in California. The same shops. So if the same shops are everywhere, why do you need to travel? Why do you need to go to different little towns and that, where mom and pop shops are being closed up? And what's moving in is Walmart, for example. And why shop anywhere if everything you need is at one store? But you start to see the creeping in of this system where our powers, our individualism starts to disappear. One more step on this. When you erase city-county borders, what happens to your vote? You live in ABC City, but ABC City has now just merged with a DEF city. So where do you get to vote? And then now you've got a region, there is no voting in this system. It's done by unelected, self-appointed agencies, just like now in the Bay Area. The ultimate step is this. This is the United Nations Biodiversity Map. It's the Wildlands Project map. Dr. Kaufman, you may all be familiar with Dr. Michael Kaufman, God bless his soul. But what you see here on this map, the red is no human use zones. My ranch is right here in this red. And what are they doing on our ranch? They're trying to control our water every which way they can. One way is to take down our dams, to destroy our dams, and then what they're going to do is what they call full basin management, meaning we need to control all the water because the river won't have water in it late at the September time of year when the fish spawn. So we're going to have to pull all the diversions, all the water to the river, back to the river, so that the fish that are non-native, not endangered, but they are their pet project fish that they're using on our particular river system, so that the fish possibly have water. So when you start taking control of the water from the farmers and the ranchers, you're now taking control of the food system. Does that make sense? But this is not about climate change. Although they want you to believe it's about climate change, this is about massive change that they say is climate change, but truly this is about behavior change because they truly want you to curb your appetite. How many have heard that we should have meatless Mondays? How many hear that we should be vegans and vegetarians to save planet Earth? How many have heard that we have to be better to the animals because, eating animals and using animals is inhumane? We hear it all the time. We've heard it from Al Gore, put a price on carbon. We heard it from Robert F. Kennedy. People should be serving time for believing against climate change. We've heard it from John Kerry. He says, my heroes are people who dared to take on great challenges without knowing for certain what the outcome would be. Let's see, we have President Obama, we have Leonardo DiCaprio, we have Al Gore and Pharrell Williams talking about climate change and global warming. And Mitt Romney, climate change is real, human-induced. Then we have the Pope, as Willie mentioned yesterday. And we have my governor, Jerry Brown, who is also speaking about this. In fact, he has a huge conference coming up in September that try and get into this conference. I hope you can. At this point, it's impossible to get into this huge conference. But he's having a conference in San Francisco in September. This is his last term. And it's all about climate change, global warming, and California, my state, leading the way. And here's what Obama said. Listen to this detail in 2014. Guys, it's been in front of us the whole time, just like that video on C-SPAN I showed you earlier of Nancy Pelosi. It's there. You can go watch that video right now. All you have to do is look it up. And these are tools for us to say, wait a minute, this is going on. And no challenge, he says, poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change. And that's why over the past 6 years, he goes on to say that under his administration, they have taken possession of more land and more water than any other administration in the United States history. So let me ask you, whose water and whose land are they taking? If government already has, and if I don't know if Chris Ann has mentioned it yet or anybody has mentioned it, that the federal government is only to control 10 by 10 square miles, which is Washington, D.C., and forts and ports. That's it. Not our land. And yet, if you look at the Department of Interior right now, he is in charge, Ryan Zinke, is in charge of over 600 million acres of land in the United States of America. But the United States of America was built on the idea of possession. Property rights. Can you tell me what a property right is? Give me an example of a property right. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
To be able to cut down trees on your own property.
Okay, so your trees are your private property, right? Give me another private property. Yep.
Let's say that you have some sort of plant that's growing in on land that you own, that you're allowed to keep it growing and harvest wherever it grows.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm going to take that to one step further. Private property is that what's in your head. It's what's in your heart. It's your religion. It's what's in your head and what you make with your hands. That is yours until you give it away. Under this system, you have no property rights because it's about the collective good first. It's about the environment first. We come somewhere down the line. I am determined to make sure that American leadership drives international action. And here's what he said in 2014. Put a price on our breath. And as Willie explained yesterday, it's going to hurt the poor more than anybody else. Now, why do I have a little bit of expertise in this area? Because I insert myself. I go to conferences. This is 2012. Lord Monckton was there. Then this is at the Paris Agreement. You all have heard about the climate Paris Agreement. So Lord Monckton, Willie, we were there to witness firsthand what the United Nations was up to. And also to debate back, although we were unheard. Just earlier this year in February, I went to Malaysia, which is where Willie's from. And I went to the United Nations Habitat number 9 conference. The theme of the United Nations Habitat Conference was Cities for All. In fact, by the year 2040, they believe that over 2050, over 80% of the world's population is going to be living in cities. Now this is urban, or this is rural out here. This is considered rural. What's a city? Boston is a city. So their idea is that somehow through environmental regulation that we are pushed out, finding you on water, bringing in wolves, telling you you can't grow this certain crop that you used to make money on because it's hazardous to the environment. Whatever reasons that they are coming up with, which are a variety throughout the United States, and all we have to do is just keep on paying attention to the ultimate goal, which is an Agenda 2.1. So the idea is that, remember, we're going to move into pack and stack housing, and you see it everywhere across the United States. Now, this is my niece, Jessica. She just graduated from Loyola Marymount, and I brought her to this conference as a graduation present. And why do I bring this up? Because Jessica, I truly believe, has been in the world that her aunt is a little bit crazy. I'm a little crazy. And my family is very active. And she can't stand being around our family for too long, in my opinion, because it's always about this kind of stuff. What's happening to the environment, with laws and all these sorts of things. So I took Jessica to the conference. And the night before we left for the conference, I was talking to her 8 roommates. And they were asking me about this conference, and I was sharing, and Jessica says, okay, enough, Dodo. She calls me Dodo because she couldn't call me Debbie when she was younger. It came out Dodo. Anyway, and it stuck. So she says, Dodo, it's time for bed now. And I'm like, okay. So she goes and she says, enough, time for bed. So she goes to bed. And then her roommate's saying to me, okay, tell us what's going to go on at this conference. And I whisper back, and I get a text on my phone saying, knock it off, Dodo. And I cried, because clearly my niece thinks I'm an embarrassment. Yes? So we go to the conference, and on the last day, Jessica joins me at one of the meetings, and it was perfect. Because at one point it was about the future of transportation, and she grabs my arm, and she said, oh my gosh, Dodo, they truly want us out of our cars. And that's a fact. The future under Agenda 21 is a carless, cashless society. And it's about control. One of the most remarkable presentations at the United Nations Habitat 9 conference that I experienced was this one on surveillance. And Christiane mentioned surveillance yesterday. Check this out. So they use these squares that you can use on social media right now for facial identification. And look, here's the guy right here. Gender, address. I don't know, Willie, you can tell us what the rest of this stuff is. What's IC?
IC, identification card.
So I guess that's your social security number or your passport number. So immediately this, and what they explained is that in order to have safe cities for the future, we need a massive surveillance system. And they're already rolled out. In fact, I think London, right, Lord Monckton, has quite a surveillance system going on.
Why do you think I wear a hat?
Not big enough.
And afterwards, after the United Nations conference, why do I go to these conferences? Because I want to hear firsthand what's going on. You want to talk about the oceans being polluted? I'm not going to talk about that until I've seen it firsthand for myself and I own the information. I own it. Polar bears. We were going to do a documentary on polar bears because I wanted to see firsthand what was really going on with the polar bears. But you could see all these surveillance cameras. I counted in Shanghai, so we went through Shanghai on our way back, 40 cameras on each corner of the street. Does that sound like freedom and liberty to you all? And as you heard Christiane say yesterday, they have already started implementing this kind of system for our future. Like I said, I've done a few documentaries. I ran for Congress. I even dressed up as a pig and showed up at a conference in California at the California Republican Conference. Why did I dress up as a pig? Because I even made the LA Times. Look, rancher Debbie Bacigalupi, dressed in a pig costume, carries a no more environmental pork sign in proposition of Prop 1. Prop 1 was a water stealing bill in California in 2014, and overwhelmingly it passed. It was supposed to be for water storage, and yet California is still on an agenda to destroy our Klamath River dams, the largest dam destruction project in worldwide history. These are some of our cows. This is our horse Freedom. And no, those are simply clouds. It's not methane. Those are not farts. But in California, they're out to control our water because supposedly cows, livestock, agriculture is stealing most of the water. But hey, let's talk about this really quickly. How much time do I have?
None.
None?
Uh-oh.
I'm at 51. May I have 4 more minutes?
Yeah.
All right. So they say, here's an example of a lie, is they say that ranchers and farmers are taking over 80% of the water in California. Let me tell you, how is that possible? Look at this. Oh, Oops, let's go back real quick. If we can only capture so much water, how is it possible that we ranchers and farmers are taking over 80% of the water? Is that possible? Look, and even if we could capture all this water because of fines, rules, regulations, laws, we can only, and by the way, we need water to grow things, right? That's why your area is so beautiful, because you have so much water here. But even of the captured water, 50% has to go, because of laws, has to go back to the environment. And then we have 40% that goes to agriculture to feed the world, and 10% goes to cities to flush your toilets and that sort of thing. But what you hear out there is ranchers and farmers are taking 80% of the water. It is a flat out lie. And why would you want to attack farmers and ranchers? What's going on? Our farmers and ranchers are being attacked. You've heard about it from the Bundy case, from Lavoy Finicum, all these different ranchers. We need to reduce cattle methane by 25% by the year 2020. In other words, we have to get rid of our cows. But I just want to go over this really quick. In modern day society, it is impossible to be vegan. It is impossible to be vegetarian. You may not eat it. But right now, you are sitting on livestock byproduct. How you got here, livestock byproduct. We use over 98% of the cow for something. Whether it's your Louis Vuitton bag, your makeup, your shampoo, your brushes. Where do you think brushes come from? Instruments, the strings, livestock. And look, you guys, what is on a glue bottle? Who is Elmer? What is Elmer? The clue is in the glue. So sticky things, Post-it notes, all livestock byproducts. And Willie brought up yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, about petroleum. Let me ask you, petroleum is also in everything. And what the United Nations is going after in Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century, are mostly three things: carbon, petroleum, and livestock, methane. And the majority of our products have all those three ingredients. So if you're going to curb appetites, consumption doesn't mean just swallowing down and eating, right? It means buying. So if you're going to change people's behavior, aren't you going to make these things bad? Aren't you going to make cows bad? Yes? Because most of our products, look, instruments, basketballs, and all the industries that come from leather because of our livestock. Streets, asphalt, tires, all lubricants. Al Gore's private jets that he gets to fly in. The retractable gear in those tires that come down, the wheels that come down, they require the lubricants of livestock. And so do the tires. The tires, the livestock is used to bind tires, to keep them together. So you may be a vegan, but your bicycle is not. And we talked about petroleum. Let me ask you about this. Petroleum, we're going to skip all the way to the end here. Willie mentioned petroleum and that Debbie would talk about products in petroleum.
Give an extra 10 minutes.
Let me ask you. Most of the medical devices are petroleum.
Yeah.
So whose life, pacemaker, do we sacrifice if we go completely 100% fossil free? This is not about saving planet Earth and the people on it. It's about controlling everything you and I do. And stores like Walmart are pushing it too. You can see here's that sustainability, right? And you can even see that Walmart, this is the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. By the year 2030, ensure that people everywhere have the relevant information and awareness for sustainable development and lifestyles in harmony with nature. And what Walmart wants to do by the year 2018, so by the end of this year, is make sure that all their products that they sell are sustainable and that you understand how you, buying their products, are a sustainable global citizen. This is no joke. Do you see the arrow? You can never unsee it. And I don't know about you, but my mama bear is out. There's so much fraud and hoax going on, and don't we just simply deserve the truth?
Yeah.
Daniel Webster said, our destruction, should it come at all, will be from another quarter. He went on to say, from the inattention of the people, meaning we're asleep, to the concerns of their government, from their carelessness and negligence, I must confess that I do apprehend some danger. I fear that they may place too implicit a confidence in their public servants, in the people we elect. Have we done that? Are we not paying attention to what our elected officials are doing? Did we pay attention to what Nancy Pelosi was pushing in 1992 on that Friday night? No, and it's here today. And fail properly to scrutinize their conduct, that in this way we may be made the dupes of designing men. He went on to say, make them intelligent. Camp Constitution. That's the whole purpose of Camp Constitution. Make them intelligent and they will be vigilant. Give them the means for detecting the wrong and they will apply the remedy. We will. We must either sit or stand, because right now we educate, communicate, and we cannot hibernate. So educate, communicate, and hibernate. We must be Americans, because the future of Agenda 21 is all about you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't live there, you can't drive that. It's about being Americans, and I urge you to be Americans. And as we educate, communicate, but do not hibernate, just remember, those darn polar bears, they're doing just fine. Thank you for letting me go over.